present you and talk about Acalvio with my colleague Krishnan. He will cover the technical part. We will show you attack scenario, our architecture, and briefly about Acalvio. Acalvio doing deception, cyber deception since 10 years. We are one of the pioneers, or we are the pioneers in the market. It's a long way behind us. And if I ask people what is deception, some say yes, we know, some say we don't know. This is why I took an explanation. It's a proactive, and for us, the only proactive cybersecurity approach which attracts or misleads attackers by presenting fake systems, get behaviors, and datas. And 20 years ago, there was a word honeynet, therefore, but now it turned to an intelligence platform, gathering intelligence to know with whom or who is tries to target you, because you don't know it most of the time, and everything in real time. So I want to say that we are not replacing any security protection systems. We enhance systems like CM systems, SOAR systems, to make them better, to collect more sensitive information from outside who tries to get in your network before it occurs in your network. Just to give some words on Acalvio, we are Gigamon ranks Acalvio interception technology as a leader. This is very important. Gartner says about us, because there's no deception quadrant, therefore, that it looks real to resist. And Gartner likes us a lot because they say now it's the time to use deception. I want to mention at this point that the US Navy is doing a challenge once a year with different technology, and it's a very tough challenge, and we won the first prize here, therefore. And also, having said this, the world's largest military alliance is using Acalvio as well. So that means we are very focused. We are focused on large networks, very stable, and major technology. But why should we think differently? We know that we stepped into the AI area, and we heard it many times today. But this changes everything, and this raised the stakes for all enterprises. I never thought this. I'm since 20 years in this industry. Nation state attackers every day, but we don't know what their intention is. We don't know who is it. Yeah, and using deception, you will know it in real time. And this is why you should think cybersecurity differently, because hackers do this too. Yes, and speed of frontline detection is the new priority. From entry, discovery in seconds, and escalation impacts in seconds, in 30 seconds. And this is really the new frontline. Detection is speed. And if you see, these are numbers from IBM, if you see today, between 60 and 90 days, attackers or nation states are undetected in your network between 60 and 90 days. They gather 150 days information about your network. You do not detect this. And over 270 days, this is a typical answer from companies or enterprises, time to identify and analyze and respond. Why not using deception? And this is why Acalvio is turning the tables with our product Shadowplex. We built a battlefield of traps that attracts and makes actors to make mistakes. This is our only goal, that threat actors make mistakes. And how we do this, we will show you now in a presentation. in a demo. Any questions so far? No. Then
here with a demonstration of how the product works. So let's look at a typical attack scenario here. And in this case, the attacker has compromised this particular system and they're bringing their own custom script. They must bring a custom script because there are AVs and EDR solutions that exist in this endpoint, and the attacker plans to evade detection. So at this point, very specifically for the attacker here, their goal is to look for remote desktop protocol profiles. So among the many things an attacker can use to move laterally within the network, RDP profiles is one such artifact that they would look for. So here in this case, the attacker has found the RDP profile, also the path where the profile lies, and now they're trying to laterally move to this particular system. But what the attacker does not realize at this point is that the RDP profile is what we call as a breadcrumb of Shadowplex, which means it's a fake information that we inject onto the endpoint. And the machine that the attacker currently moves to is a decoy of Shadowplex. And everything the attacker did has been recorded in the UI of Shadowplex, which I'm shortly about to show you. So this is exactly how we work. We would deploy deceptive artifacts inside your network and convert your enterprise into a minefield of deception. So which basically means one false move or one wrong move by the attacker, and we'd be able to detect them. From a deception artifact perspective, we've got decoys, which are fake systems that are distributed inside the network. And decoys would resemble real systems. Like decoys can be servers, workstations, IoT devices like cameras or printers, and we can deploy decoys to a variety of working environments. So for instance, we can deploy them to the cloud, to an on-premise virtual environment or a physical workload, or also to OT networks. So we aim at providing pervasive and comprehensive deception deployment, which would result in early threat detection. We just saw the example of the RDP profile being a breadcrumb. There are several other categories or types of breadcrumbs that we have. For example, we've got SSH profiles, memory credentials, browser cache that can be distributed at scale into various endpoints inside your network so that we would fool or misguide the adversary into choosing a breadcrumb, which would then lead them onto a decoy. Baits are tripwires or self-contained data deceptions. One example of a bait is a beaconing document, wherein you can beaconize this document, it's a honey document, and place it in areas where sensitive or confidential data would reside. And if the attacker plans on exfiltrating this document and taking it to their command and control center, the moment they open this document, we'll get an alert revealing the location of where the attackers are operating from. So beaconing document themselves pertains to a very unique use case of detecting data exfiltration through deception. And all of these different deceptive artifacts are fully packaged and available from our fully autonomous platform, where we ensure that it takes the minimum of human intervention to deploy the best practices of deception inside your network. So let's look at how exactly we would achieve this, and let's look at the architecture, and I'll also walk you through the deployment steps. So on the right of your screen, you have the Acalvio Deception Center, which is regarded as the brain of the operation. And inside the ADC, we've got the management UI and everything that is required to deploy and maintain deceptions. The second component here is the sensor. So if the ADC is more like the brain of the solution, the sensor here would be the eye of the solution that provides us visibility into all of these connected networks. From a form factor perspective, we can have the ADC deployed from the cloud. We support major cloud platforms. And you can also deploy the ADC as a virtual machine or as a hardware appliance if you require data to be within your site. The sensor can be deployed as a virtual machine or a hardware appliance. And if you're deploying the sensor to a specific cloud workload, it would be native to that platform, like EC2 for AWS, just to give you an example. So the first step here is we would discover the neighborhood and understand the different operating systems, services, host naming conventions. And we do this automatically so that we can process that data in terms of what the neighborhood looks like inside the ADC, and then project deceptions that would blend into the network. So these decoys here are not going to look any different from a real system in the environment, and we're going to mimic existing network assets. We would also mimic the host naming conventions, the MAC addressing, the services that are active on these systems to ensure that the attackers are not going to fingerprint them as deceptions. All of this happens automatically. The next step here is we would inject breadcrumbs and baits into all of these different systems that are in scope of endpoint deception deployment. And we are an agentless solution. So we would use an EDR or SCCM or ADGPO that is available with the customer in order to roll out breadcrumbs at scale. So you do not have to undergo the administration overhead of deploying agents to all of these different machines. And finally, we manage deception entirely from within the ADC, and we would orchestrate deception deployment from the centralized platform, which is the Acalvio Deception Center. So let me also take you through a quick demo. And before we get to the demo, I'd like to show you a simplified architecture diagram of what you're about to see. So we've got an organization here called as Acme, and Acme has multiple types of workloads. So there's an OT site, an on-premise IT network, and a couple of cloud workloads. And in terms of deploying deception to such a diverse environment, all that's required are sensors that are placed into all these networks, depending on the type of network it is. And then we would then connect all the sensors to the Acalvio Deception Center, and we would orchestrate and deploy deceptions from within the ADC. So our customers always get this benefit of centralized deception deployment, all from within the Acalvio Deception Center. So let's switch over and get to the demo here. Just to start off with the hierarchy here, we've got the Acalvio Deception Center at the top. So the management UI is also inside the ADC. And the ADC has multiple logical components called as sites. So a site can represent a city of deployment or a data center or a cloud versus an on-premise workload. And each of these sites would require a sensor to provide visibility. And each of these sensors would have visibility to multiple different subnets. So we can choose a site here, and the sensor, it shows you the list of all the subnets that are currently added as part of the scope of deception deployment. There are only 2 steps when it comes to deception deployment using Shadowplex. And once we have onboarded those subnets that are in scope, step number 1 is complete. It's a one-time activity. Step number 2 is about deception strategy and design, and that is achieved through this concept called as playbooks. So at Acalvio, we believe that every deception deployment should have a clear purpose in mind, which is captured or encapsulated using a concept called as playbook. So let me go ahead and open one of them. So a playbook is a collection of deceptive artifacts, decoys, breadcrumbs, and baits that are incorporated with an intent in mind. And during the deployment, we would speak with our customers and understand the topology and the key assets that are part of each workload. And we would combine the data points they give us with our expertise of rolling out deception to multinational companies and our expertise on the threat landscape to design these playbooks for the customer. So all that's required here is click on Actions, import playbook file, and you'll have the playbook ready in front of you. So the biggest value addition here is we are providing deception expertise contained using this concept called as playbook. And once the playbook is applied here, you can deploy them to, let's say, hundreds of different VLANs, resulting in thousands of deceptions that are placed inside the network. So we can deploy deceptions at scale inside the enterprise. Once we finish the deception deployment, we provide a bird's eye view of the entire deployment itself with the sites up top. These are the different subnets that have been onboarded. And if you click on one of these subnets, it shows you the different decoys that are currently active. You can also click on one of these decoys and it shows you the attributes of the decoy on the right of your screen. Once we have all the deceptions deployed, we can monitor for incidents on this particular screen called as deception events. So we've got a timeline view at the top and a tabular view at the bottom. We also have a slider with which you can access events that have been captured in a previous timeline, or you could drag one end of it so you have more events populated on screen. And you can scroll through and then find that one particular incident that you'd like to dive deep into. You can click on the info button. It shows you where is the attack coming from, the port of interaction with the decoy, and also additional forensic information like PCAP captures and indicators of compromise in multiple different formats. Shadowplex provides this unique advantage to SOC teams because we would provide this feature called as triaged incidents. So we do not want to just forward all of these events to the SOC center, to the SIM, and then expect the SOC analyst to find out what exactly the attacker did. Instead, we provide this sort of a view, which is an asset-centric view, and it basically shows you all the different assets that have been compromised as part of the activity by the attacker. So you can scroll through and click on one of them, and it shows you, first off, the endpoint itself that is highlighted. We would also have information about the credentials that the attacker is using. So we'd be able to understand a lot about the attacker just by looking at these credentials. Meaning, is this an attacker that has done a lot of social engineering and has found out employee names or usernames belonging to employees of your organization? Or is it somebody searching in the dark and using generic credentials like admin or root? We would also show you the different ports that the attacker has used. So based on this particular information, we can deploy decoys enterprise-wide that are listening to these services, and you can do an enterprise-wide threat hunting solely with deception here. We would also map all of the attacker activities to MITRE ATT&CK framework. So here, for example, these are the different tactics, and down below you see the different techniques. So you can go ahead and click on one of them, and it shows you more details on that particular technique itself. From an integrations perspective, Shadowplex can integrate with multiple other solutions that are available in your security stack. For example, from a SIM perspective, we have pre-built integrations with all of those vendors that you see here. So enabling us to export actionable intelligence that are parsed and viewable in one of these CM dashboards. We also have integrations with SOAR platforms. So the fact is, deception, when it comes to deception, everything that we deploy would be fake, and those are bogus data that we are deploying in the network. So any interaction with the deception is considered to be of high fidelity. So from a SOAR integration perspective, you can use that high fidelity alert that we generate to kick off orchestration workflows like quarantine and that particular compromised IP, or blacklisting an IP. You can have all of those done and SOAR playbooks created based on the high fidelity incidents that we are forwarding. And from an EDR perspective, we've got multiple vendors available, more being built on. We could use the EDR integration to distribute breadcrumbs and baits at scale. So just with the REST API integration, let's say with a CrowdStrike or a Microsoft Defender, we can deploy deceptions agentlessly to all of those different managed endpoints inside the network. So that's a quick overview of Shadowplex from a technical perspective. I'd like to know if you have any questions here.
No questions. Thank you, Krishna.
Sure.
Just give us a second. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Krishnan. All this will connect in a moment.
Yes, very sorry. Sorry, had some technical issues. Thank you, Harry, and thank you, Krishnan, for the lovely presentation. We actually do have one question, quite a general one. In real customer environments, what's the hardest part about getting deception right?
Right. So when it comes to an actual customer deployment, we have to ensure that the deceptions mimic actual production assets. So that's where bulk of the effort will go into. But the good part about this is the solution would do a lot of heavy lifting in terms of ensuring that the deceptions that are deployed out would mimic existing customer infra accurately using our AI-powered artificial intelligence, active discovery scan. And based on the discovery scan, we'd be able to deploy deceptions accordingly. So in terms of getting deception right, the most important thing is to make them non-fingerprintable and attractive to attackers. But the good part about is the solution already has that built in. So
Wonderful. We still have a few more minutes. By any chance, anything you might missed or want to add to your presentation?
I would, sorry, Krishnan?
No, go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, I would say in a nutshell, why customers like us is these are 3 points. It's easy to roll out, yeah, easy to maintain, and for large environments. So, and you can see after a short while our value adds the data we deliver. This is what we can. I would like to add.
Wonderful. Thank you, gents, for your presentation.